It's a good day for a good day. Hello, everybody. My name's Cece Ray. Thanks for joining me here at Break the Dish, where we break the news and dish out the tea. We are getting to recap The Real Housewives of Rhode Island. That's right. Season 1, Episode 4. I have to tell you, these women, each episode, they bring it. I mean, they really bring it. And I am here for it. The funny thing is that off camera, after they were done filming, crap was still hitting the fan. So I don't know if you saw me when I did dish the tea breakers, but I mentioned this, that so Ruella's husband, okay, put a tracking device in her car. Not that he doesn't trust her. He did it so that he could see where she was, so he could continue on with this affair. That's right. And she found out about it, and she had him arrested. I mean, she had him arrested. Can you believe that? But they're still together. And I'll even put an allegedly on it, even though it's public record. Also, sources are saying that his girlfriend signed an NDA. So now he wants to sue his girlfriend for putting pictures up on Instagram because she signed an NDA. This is allegedly. Exactly. Crazy. But we're going to get into it. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, because here we break the dish. We are recapping The Real Housewives of Rhode Island, Season 1, Episode 4. And it opens up, Joellen is packing to go on a business trip to Chicago. Apparently her sister Jen is going to come over and help with the kids. Then we see Liz at her house. Dolores is coming over for a visit. These two are like lighting sage and to get all the negativity out of her house from what happened at the party. And Dolores says, look, Ruella and her husband, they were standing there next to me. And she says, Joellen and her husband came up and was like, have you met my husband? I don't think you have. And Dolores said, I kind of felt sorry for Ruella. And Liz says, yeah, I don't understand why she is white-knuckling. And she says she's in denial, like she's pointing the finger somewhere else, and that's just going to fester more. And Dolores says, yeah, there was a lot of mean girl stuff going on that night. And Liz says, look, I played it over in my head. I'm disgusted by my reaction. I was a bitter, drunken witch. She says, I really lost my shit. And Kelsey, though, she co-signed on a lie to avoid her own issues with this person that she didn't want to come out. And then in Liz's confessional, remember they're talking about Dino. In Liz's confessional, she says, listen, they were either dating or hooking up for a brief moment, but there was a romantic relationship. But not anything to what I've had, And so Dolores says to Liz, do you trust her? And Liz says, I did. And Dolores says, do you still? Liz says, that might take a minute. So Dolores says, was it hard, handling it wrong? Yes. Do you owe her an apology? Yes. Liz says, well, I feel like she owes me an apology too. Now we're at like Ashley's favorite beach, which I have to tell you, I live at the beach. This would not be a beach that I would be going to. I'm just saying. But it's Ashley, Kelsey, Rosie, and Alicia. So in Ashley's confessional, she says, these girls are more like the country club bunch. She says they're showing up with designer bags. They look like Malibu Barbie. And here I am looking like a mom that tried a little bit today. And in Alicia's confessional, she says, this is your favorite beach. I'm right with Alicia on this one. She says, come with me to my country club, beach club. She says they carry your chair, your purse, your snacks. This is too much work. So, Alicia brought pizza chips. Have you ever heard of pizza chips? I have never heard of this, okay? She's talking about how her grandfather was one of the first ones to do it, because he opened Superior Bakery. And Ashley says, they think it's great, but where's the cheese? I'm there with Ashley on this one, by the way. So it's pizza dough with tomato sauce on top. Now it's cold. There's no cheese, just the sauce and the dough. And you're eating it cold. I don't know. What do you think? I don't know if that would be tasty to me. I'm just saying, I'm going to have to try it. I need to try it. You know what I mean? Moving on. So, Rosie invites everyone to what's called the Rail Explorers. And she says, but can we talk about the party? Like, why is Rulla so mad at Joellen? And Alicia says, well, I have to tell you that Rulla's Brian, okay? He was married to my Spanish teacher when he met Rulla. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in the Watch What Happens Live, Andy questioned her about this. And she says, well, I don't know it's true or not. She says, but it's kind of like 90% true. It's probably true. So Ashley says, so he's just a cheater. And Alicia says, basically, but he doesn't look like a cheater, And Alicia says, but I need to know what happened. She's talking now to Kelsey. And Kelsey says, well, I went to Liz, she says, and I bent down and I said, how are you doing? And then I said, she says, I just wanted a minute with Dino and my husband. And I said, I don't want to go. I wouldn't do that because, of Dino's ongoing. And she said, before I could say anything else, I stopped and she like booked it. And she's saying, there's no ongoing, and ran up the stairs. So I followed her. And in Kelsey's confessional, she said, I meant ongoing rumors about their affair. I thought she should distance herself from him just because people are talking about her spreading lies that are untrue. And Rulla says, what was she saying upstairs? Kelsey says, "You're fake." Like she said it like 96 million times. And Kelsey says, in her confessional, in my brain, I was thinking, oh my God, like, did I just dead myself with my relationship with Liz? Alicia says, like, listen, the people we grew up with, they weren't so like happy-go-lucky. She says, so we come from the same cut, like the same type of cloth. And, we all have to walk on eggshells with her. She says, even me. And she says, she's no bullshit. I even get scared of her. And I guess it's like the next day, we're at Alicia's house and all her aunts and her mom are coming over like they always do. They probably do this like once a week. And, Alicia's talking about her grandfather opening Superior Bakery and how the Cicerone girls, that was their last name, their maiden name, worked in the back of the bakery and like everybody would be screaming because they didn't know what they were doing. And then Liz shows up and everybody goes, Liz, And in Liz's confessional, she says, that her family is a riot. She says, my sister and Alicia's mom are best friends. She said when they first met, I was probably like about 6 or 8 years old. And Alicia's mom and sisters are blunt. Like they will tell you anything. She said, but once you meet them, you never forget them. And so now Rulla comes in. And in her confessional, she says, my family has known Billy's family for like 30 years. That's Alicia's fiance or boyfriend, rather. And she says we've been patrons of Billy's restaurants, and Billy and his family have been patrons of her family's jewelry stores. So now Ashley arrives. And in her confessional, she says, I've never been in the group without Rosie before. So she doesn't have like her support animal, And she says, I've heard a lot about these ladies, like great things. She says, my esthetician does one of Alicia's aunt and her mom. And she says, they're just great. And she says, and one of them doesn't drive. She says, just like Alicia. So Rulla says, I like Billy so much. And one of the aunts says, everyone does, And Liz says, as much as I do like him, she says, I want to say to him, like, what are you doing? Like, make it right, meaning with Alicia, And then you see this like recap of when Alicia is talking to Liz. And she's saying that when they were working up like a prenup, the lawyers had said to her that he's not leaving you a penny and he won't put her name on the house. And so Ashley says, this is jointly yours. This is where you raise your daughter and you keep a home for him. That needs to be discussed. And in Alicia's I just went like, in Alicia's confessional, she says, Billy is in control of all the finances, and I hate asking him for money. And what I remember as a little kid, is that her dad took everything and they had no money. And so this makes her, angry at times. So Ashley says, you got to go get a lawyer. Liz says, not only that, but what about Pizza Mama? Like, that's you. And one of the aunts says, look, no one is going to put your name on that business until you're married. And in Alicia's why am I just having such a hard time with this word today? In Alicia's confessional, she says, I've always been a runaway bride, she's had these long-term relationships, and, when it gets to the, when they're shopping for rings or talking about the future, she says, then I think this is not my forever, and I break up with him. She says, Billy, he's got the ring, but I'm still hesitant on getting married because this time I need to see more from him. I need more of a commitment before I commit. So Rulla says, you need to make sure you look after yourself. She says, I'm not a licensed attorney, but, I work with a lot of them. And she says, the law will dictate this. It's all about trust. And one of the aunts says to Rulla, are you happily married? Rulla says, I am. It's never perfect. We've gotten past bumps, but, we all have them sometimes. And, one of the other aunts says, sometimes you can't get past those bumps. I had a relationship for many years with my husband and then found out he was wandering. And Rulla says, there has been an indiscretion, and you are but when you're in a healthy, loving relationship, something happens out of the blue, and she says, I don't want to cry. And Liz says, it's all right. Like we all have. And then one of the aunts says, look, I'm not here to judge. We've all been there. And Rulla says, I'm having a hard time getting over the lying and the twisting of things. And one of the aunts says, look, it's hard to trust again. And then she's kind of talking to the group, and she's referring, though, to Rulla. And she says, this girl's going to be looking over her shoulder. Where is he? He didn't show up for dinner, or he's got a business trip. Do you want to live like that? Rulla says, nobody wants to live like that. And one of the aunts says, I did for a while. Mine had affairs with lots of women. And Rulla says, is that right? And then in her confessional, she says, I'm listening. But there's a lot about Brian people don't know. He's caring, he's loving, he's a great provider, and we have children. But the one thing that sticks with me is, do you want to spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder? It hits me. It hasn't hit her yet because she's still with him. I'm just saying. And then one of the aunts says to her, you know what? I hope and pray you hurt him. Well, everybody starts laughing the way she said it. I mean, it was funny. It really was. Now we see Ashley and Rosie meeting up. And Rosie says, look, I like children, but I also like giving them back to their parents. I get that. And Ashley says, he's so much a daddy, talking about, Rosie's husband. And Rosie says, I don't know, we're building a house and, he wants to have kids, but he's always working. I'm always working. And I couldn't give like 110%. She said, we actually tried before we got married. And after that, I realized like, this isn't really my dream to be a mother, and she starts talking about how, like, her mother worked. However, she was very controlling, very critical. She says, and I don't want to mess anyone up. Ashley says, well, I hope this isn't an issue that's long term. It's difficult when one person wants to have kids and the other one doesn't. You think, though, well, she says actually that they discussed it prior to that, and prior to getting married, and they both said they didn't want kids, but now he's starting to change his mind. That's what's going on right now. So now we see Liz. She's on Jerry's boat. Jerry sold his boat. And she says, so now he's going to be home all the time. And they've got a new baby on the way. Remember, her stepdaughter is pregnant. And she's explaining how, when he was sport fishing, he would be gone 3 weeks at a time. And then he would only be home for a couple days. And then he would be back out for like another 3 weeks. And he would call Dino and say, like, I'm going to be gone, for so many weeks. So, take care of Liz. And she says, so basically, he helped with this rumor. And so now Kelsey comes in and, because Liz asked her to help her clean the boat out, but she's nervous. She doesn't know what her thought process is. So Liz says to Kelsey, look, I'm not proud of my reaction. When you said people don't want to be around because of the quote unquote ongoing, that word triggered me. She said, you of all people know that there's no ongoing thing. It was a gut punch, and you co-signed to that narrative, and, you distance yourself from that ugly piece of it. Kelsey says, look, in the moment when I said it, she says, I just discard, my experience with him. It's just an instinct that, I withdraw and put him off. And because mine wasn't so good. And Kelsey, in her confessional, says, she had a very weak moment in her life. It was about 10 years ago. She hooked up with Dino. This is before her and her boyfriend was exclusive at the time. Even though, hello, they're still not exclusive. I mean, he's living with some chick in Miami. You're dating some guy up here. Hello. And we have to remember, too, that, it's been reported that she really doesn't live in that house. Matter of fact, that house isn't even her boyfriend's. Apparently, I'll say allegedly, this is her boyfriend's grandfather's house. And the grandfather passed away. So basically, the grandmother's in charge of it. And his granddaughter actually lives in the house. And Kelsey has an apartment. Now, her boyfriend pays for that apartment. So I guess while she was filming, I guess she was kind of like roommates with the granddaughter. I don't know. But why say you live there when you don't? Little shady, right? But she says, I was weak and vulnerable. This was a time in my life that I wasn't happy. And it wasn't for me. And the more I tried to distance myself, and hate him, he got, he loved it, and he would show up more. And she says, he'd show up places that I was at. He didn't want me to talk to other people or to other guys. and I tried cutting him out of my life. And him being around is just like a reminder of the past that I try to forget. And, she says, I appreciate his friendship to you, and how he takes care of you. But I didn't have that same experience. She says, like, I have PTSD from that. And Liz says, I get that, babe. We've had different experiences. But, I want nothing to do with that, And she says, I'm sorry. And Kelsey says, I'm sorry. I love you. And so, well, at least we know now that, yeah, she did date Dino because it looked like they were trying to keep it on the down low first. Like, are we going to tell or are we not going to tell? You know what I mean? So that's like kind of interesting. Just saying. So now everyone's getting together for Rosie's event, that the rail explorer. And so Kelsey, Rosie, Ashley, and Rulla, they're in one van. Now remember, Joellen is still on her business trip. And Kelsey says, before I came here, I ate leftover McDonald's out of the trash. I mean, everybody's like, their jaws dropped. They're just like staring at her. Why would you eat McDonald's out of a trash can? Like, girl, isn't your boyfriend giving you enough money for food at least? Come on. Rulla says, everything not Rulla. Rosie says, everything I eat, I get bloated. She says, so why not eat Taco Bell? Ashley asks Rulla, why do I keep saying Rulla? Rosie, is that because of the Ozempic? Rosie says, no, it's been like this my whole life. She says, and a few years ago, I had colitis. And, I had to quit work because I was like wearing diapers to work. And so I took medical leave. And then I loved it. And I thought to myself, why would I go back to work? And in Kelsey's confessional, she says she left on medical leave. No. She says me and the entire state knows that she got fired for having an affair with someone higher up. So now in the other car is Alicia, Liz, and Dolores. And Liz says, the night of my party, like I went mental. Alicia says, yeah, but it was your party. And then Alicia says to Liz, yeah, Kelsey apologized. Liz says, did she? She apologized to me too, but I bet she probably didn't tell you that. And they all start laughing, And so they all get there, and now they're all splitting up into the different rails. So you like sit down on this, like, I'm going to say car. It's not a car, but it's almost like a bicycle. So you sit down and it's on like a like rails, like on a train. So you sit down and you have to bicycle it though to move. And so it's Kelsey and Alicia, Dolores, Ashley, and Rulla is in the back. And then you have Rosie and Liz. So Rosie and Liz, they look at each other and they're like, basically like, let's go fast, And Dolores and Ashley, they're really going slow. Meanwhile, Ruella's in the back, like making cocktails. It's quite funny. And Rosie says to Liz, how do you feel about Ashley? Liz says, well, from what I know of her, I met her on 4th of July. It wasn't great. She says she didn't even look at me. And Rosie says to Liz, you can be scary. I don't think you realize how scary you are. You're successful. You're beautiful. Liz says, well, those aren't scary things. And Rosie says, but all of them put together are scary. And then in Liz's confessional, she says, maybe I do come across as scary, but I know where my heart lies. Like, I would give you the shirt off my back. And, she says, but when I come around the corner, people do jump. So maybe I am a little scary. So Rosie says to Ashley, everybody's now, they have to you go 3 miles. And then when you get there, there's like, picnic tables and stuff like that. And Rosie has like this huge spread of food and drinks for everyone. And then you have to actually bicycle 3 miles back. But the view is gorgeous. I mean, it's like along the coastline. It's just beautiful. So Rosie takes Ashley to the side and she says, I was with Liz and your name came up. And we were talking about, the first time. She says, well, Liz said that the first time I met Ashley, she says, she completely ignored me, like she didn't like me. And you didn't pay any attention to her. And you're not trying to be friends with her. And I told her that she's very scary. And in Ashley's confessional, she says, my mom used to say that people mistook her shyness for bitchiness. And she says, I think that's what's happening here. She says, because I am truly shy in front of some people, So now all the women are kind of like sitting around here. And Alicia says, let me ask you a question. I really want to know, like, Pizza Mama, I'm growing it with Billy, and I have all these ideas and I want to show him that I can do it. And I'm just not that girl that does your laundry all day. And Liz says, well, what do you mean? You invented it. Like, hello. And Alicia says, well, none of it is in my name. Liz says, you have to demand this. It's up to you, like demand. And Ashley says, have you ever had a conversation about it? And Kelsey says, let's play role models. So she's getting now Alicia up. And Alicia's like, oh, I love to do this, So Kelsey says, I'm Bill. Alicia goes, I can't have sex with you all the time. I'd rather go to bed and watch Love Island. Well, everybody starts busting out laughing because that had nothing to do with what her question was or what she wanted to say to Bill. I don't think she's playing with a full deck. I'm just saying. So, Kelsey says, I'm not putting the house in your name. And Alicia says, please, Billy, like I have all these ideas for Pizza Mama. And I've never asked for $1 back. I get 0 so far. I've given you 11 years. I've given you my whole life. And she says, at the heart of it, you should put me on the house because you should want to take care of me. I'm the mother of your daughter and I love you. I mean, isn't that enough? And this is showing me that I'm worthless. Show me that I'm worth something. And then Alicia stops and she's looking at all the women and she's like, this is going to make me cry. Rulla says, tell him that there is an intrinsic value to being a wife and a mother. Well, somebody, I don't know which one said this because it was kind of like under the breath. They're like, yeah, she doesn't understand what that word is. So then Rulla says, let me put this in lay terms. Just because you're a wife and a mother right now, doing the laundry, the cooking, the cleaning, helping with all his stuff, you have value. And in Alicia's confessional, she says, Rulla is financially independent, and I envy that. Like, I hate asking Billy for money. I'm embarrassed, and I'm intimidated with the whole financial thing. So then Alicia sits down and she says, so wait, what were the two of you talking about? And Rosie says, oh, we were just having a little chat. And Alicia says, what happened? And Ashley says, we were talking about Rosie and I being a little intimidated by her. And she's talking about Liz. Liz says, I don't know why. And Rosie says, I did tell you on the rails that you can be a little intimidating. I mean, I'm not scared of you now. Well, sometimes. Well, most of the time. And Liz says, I have this deadly exterior, but deep down inside, I'm super sensitive. She says, you know, maybe it could be partly like a defense mechanism or partly just, you know, being tough. And then Liz, in her confessional, she says, I really don't allow people to get close, especially fast. You know, I've experienced much loss in life, and I don't want to get close to people and then lose them. And she says, and I also don't want to get close to people and then be disappointed by them. Liz says, I tend to jump down people's throats, but not on purpose. You know, do you think that? And so Rosie says, do you think that's what happened on Saturday night? Liz says, no. I was heated. I was drunk. I'm not proud of that. That was not one of my finest moments. And so Dolores jumps in and says, look, circumstances happen. You just got to move on. So Rosie says to Alicia, well, Alicia, you said that she's always like that, you know, when she just gets mad. Rosie says, Alicia, like playing the Brady Bunch here. Alicia says, Rosie, don't do that. No. And Liz says to Alicia, did you say it's not going to change? Alicia says to Liz, no, I said what it is. Rosie says, I asked, has she always been like this? Alicia's looking at Rosie. She says, don't turn that ground. Rosie, I wouldn't do that if I were you. Let's just keep it real. And in Rosie's confessional, she says, I understand she might be upset. I told the truth about what she said about Liz. I kind of thought it was just a fact that we were all acknowledging. But I guess you really can't be honest or transparent because everybody is scared. Alicia said, I said this is why you were this, Liz. Rosie says, you just admitted you said it. Alicia says, I didn't admit to shit. Don't flip that shit. Don't do that to me. She says, you don't know me like that. You know, once you flip that shit, I'll never see you the same again. So slow your roll. You're not hot. Now I know who you really are. Don't F with me. Liz says, it's all right, babe. Alicia says, no, it's not all right. You twisted my words and you're an effing troll. Then in Alicia's confessional, she says, I don't like feeling betrayed. Like, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to prove? I wasn't bashing Liz. You know, she says, I don't know how Rosie twisted it. I don't like that betrayal. I don't like snakes. Rosie says, I literally didn't do anything to you, Alicia. Alicia says, she effed me and I'm not that. So Alicia responds, welcome to Rhode Island, bitch. This is how we roll. Rosie says, I literally did not do anything to you, Alicia. And Alicia says, you know, you effed me and I'm not into that. Rosie says, I didn't F you. Alicia says, you did, you thirsty bitch. You're so thirsty, it's scary. So she gets up, she starts walking away, and she says, effing whore, I'm done. So while she walks away, Rulla gets up and follows her. And Liz says, did I miss something? And Ashley says, Rosie says, I think she thinks that I was trying to start a problem with you. She says, oh no, she's coming back. And Ashley says, oh God, I'm scared. Alicia goes, you just tried to do something that you should not have done. You just did the most grossest thing ever. Thank you for showing me your cards. It's how she twisted things that is weirding me out, because people like that, they're just a little troll, snake eyes. That's just not my style. And in Ashley's confessional, she says, you know, I kind of feel sorry for Rosie. To me, this is like demonstration that Alicia is going to defend Liz to the depths of her soul. She wants to prove that she would never talk, you know, about Liz behind her back, and respects her too much. And that root goes deep. She says, I've never seen anything like this in my entire life. Rosie says, I would have never said it if I thought you would react this way. Alicia says, I don't like the way that you looked. Rosie says, the way that I looked? Alicia says, your eyes look sneaky little troll. I'm not into snakes. I don't like snakes. You're a snake. So now Alicia gets up again and she starts to walk away, and Liz follows her and she's like, come here, babe. And Alicia says to Liz, she lied, and that freaks me out. I don't like that shit. Liz says to her, look, what's happening to you is what happened to me Saturday night. I had the same response, be even worse. And she says, and I regretted it the next day. Alicia says, I won't regret it though, I promise you. Liz says, your reaction, you might. Alicia says, not with her. No. I was loyal to her too. I don't give a shit. I mean, this chick is going off the deep end. And so Ashley says to Rosie, God, that was shocking for me to see. Rosie says, it was shocking for me to experience. And then Dolores says, Ashley's going to need a bath in holy water tonight, which I thought was funny. And then in Kelsey's confessional, she says, this is the first time that I have ever seen Alicia flip out. She says, this is what she means when she says that her and Liz are cut from the same cloth. She says, but I get why she is mad. Like, Rosie will exaggerate or manipulate stories and the truth and then keep on talking about nonsense. So Alicia says that I tell Liz exactly how I feel. They're back sitting down at the group. Rosie says, I never said that you didn't. Alicia says, you just acted weird and I don't like what you did. You disrespected me. Rosie says, I didn't mean to. Alicia's like, you know, then learn from that. Rosie says, I don't disagree, but you misinterpreted it. Like, can we talk, about it over here? And Alicia says, I'd rather have you tell me I'm sorry. And Rosie says, come over here, talk to me. So Liz turns around and says, why do they have to go over there just to talk about it? And Alicia says to Rosie, you just threw me for an effing loop. And Rosie says, I don't understand. I had a whole conversation with Liz on the way up here. Like, a lot of the times I do feel intimidated and I walk on eggshells with her. And Alicia says, she knows that. And, you're not going to call me out. You won't call her out. And Alicia says, you say you're sorry. Rosie says, I'm really sorry. I don't want us not to be friends, and I don't want you to be secretly effing hating me. Alicia says, I don't hate you. We're good? Because I can get over shit, but you can't, though. And in Ashley's confessional, she says, I'm a gangster sometimes. I have a temper, but I forgive easily. And if I would have had my peppermint oil, I probably would have been more calm, because the smell of it calms me down. I'm like Mary Catherine Gallagher, and she goes to sniff her armpits. This is during her confessional, and she's like, I can't do that. That's terrible. That's a skit from Saturday Night Live, if you don't know what I'm talking about. So Rosie says to Alicia, I forgive you. I love you. Liz says, no, I'm sorry. Ashley says, actually, it was so funny too, because Liz looks over her shoulder and she says, is she hugging her? And then Ashley says, this is record time for like the flip-flop world. She says, because they're already hugging. And that's how the episode ended. So what did you guys think? I thought it was a good episode. I thought it was filled with information and emotion and yelling and screaming. I have to say, like, I would give this episode a solid 9. What would you rate it? I found it, look, when the aunts were talking to Rulla, I kind of thought about this. Number one, I'm going to say allegedly on this. Rulla met Brian when he was married to Alicia's Spanish teacher. And apparently he left her to marry Rulla. I have a friend, well, I don't know if she's a friend, but I have this friend who met her husband now. But when she met him, she was the other girl. He was living with somebody, and she was the other girl. And then they wind up getting married, and a couple of years later, what happens? That's right. He cheats on her. Why would you be so surprised that he's cheating on you when you were the other woman when he was married to somebody else? That's how you met him. I mean, hello? Some leopards don't change their spots. Like this one, he's never changing his spots. Never. She's going around town saying, yes, he had an indiscretion, but it's done. Meanwhile, his girlfriend there is throwing things up on Instagram, and he's still seeing her. And all these women are telling her it's still happening. And she's like, la, 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 la. She doesn't want to hear it. It's crazy. It's crazy. Listen, Rulla, you were the other woman when he was married, allegedly, I'll put allegedly on that, to Alicia's Spanish teacher. And then he married you. And now he's got another woman. Why are you so surprised? I just don't get it. I can't imagine that you would think, oh, he'd never do that to me. Hello? I also think that, remember when Rulla had that Lebanese lunch? Those ladies sitting around that table gave her the advice of, look, you made a mistake. You're not going to walk out the door for a mistake. And on that same episode, if you remember, during Ruella's confessional, the producer says, weren't you married before? Well, she shut that right down. She was like, I don't want to talk about it. My family would not like that. So I'm getting the impression that she's already divorced. It could have been like shame on the family. So she doesn't want to get divorced again. I mean, because maybe she would have this like, black label across her chest, when it came to her family. And she doesn't want to go through this again. But to ignore what's going on around you is ridiculous. I mean, and to think that allegedly you met him when he was married to someone else, and now you're married to him and he's playing on the side with someone else. Like, open your eyes, Rulla. Like, seriously. It's crazy. Just crazy. It really is. I also, let's just talk about Rosie for a minute. Nosy Rosie, as she calls herself. Nosy Rosie. She's more than just nosy. She really stirs the pot. I mean, she does twist things around. I mean, take a look at when she even pulled Ashley to the side. She started that conversation by saying, your name came up. Yeah, her name came up because you brought it up. Do you see how she twists it around? And when it came to Alicia said basically like, yeah, she's got a temper and we all walk on eggshells around her, including me. That's what she said. She didn't say like she'll never change or, she definitely created that whole argument. I don't know what she was thinking, but she's definitely doing this on purpose. And I don't trust her a bit. Nosy Rosie is more than nosy. She is definitely a crapster. And all those ladies, they should keep an eye on this one. This one's shady. She's more than nosy. She's shady. But that's just my opinion. But what did you guys think? Do you think she's just nosy Rosie? Yeah, I'm not quite sure. But we will keep this conversation going in the comments below. You know I love that. And before you do, make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, because here we break the dish.